Protests are good for raising awareness, but if you want to change the power dynamic, a strike is required. This is especially true when attempting to dismantle a social justice agenda. The target of a general strike is the social justice agenda of the state. But due to the nature of unions, a general strike is usually a call for more social justice, not less. A tactical general strike agitates for the social justice agenda to be scaled back in favor of more local options. Canada was created as a social justice institution with 3 objectives. To make this possible, it was designed with a dominant federal core. The local was largely emasculated, though the size of the nation made centralization difficult in the beginning. The 3 objectives of Canada were social justice objectives, namely we are to fund the imperial government, the federal Canadian government and various institutions that were deemed helpful in the maintenance of the social justice features of the country. The people were given the right to elect a government, but the government would always be elected on a social justice platform. But this meant the local would be sacrificed. The people have no say in who runs for office. The electorate's choice is restricted to a limited number of vetted and pre-selected candidates, all who to some degree support and run on the social justice agenda. Some call this agenda globalism, but globalism is more of a secondary consequence than the main objective. The people have only the most limited influence on their government. The trouble with protests is that they have no way to directly impact the state. Whatever they manage to accomplish is achieved by indirect means. Governments know they can wait out protests. Negotiations end up being a long, drawn-out process. Negotiators eventually loses focus due to the nature of debate. But this fits in with the objectives of most protests, which are to negotiate concessions from the state, perhaps to make the share of the pie larger for the protesting group. A tactical general strike has one purpose and one purpose only, and that is to reduce or eliminate the social justice agenda of the state. We do not want the state to share the pie, let alone make our share larger. The consequence of this is to push power back down to where it belongs, the lower political levels. Government has nothing but desks, computers, and some office space. But they have unlimited access to money and time. The military and police services are beholden to them because the government pays them. The police are part of the social agenda network of the state. Never think the police or military will side with people who seek to eliminate social justice. Locavores represent a risk to the institutions of social justice, not a benefit. All social justice warriors are secure in their jobs, and they are arrogant in their power. The social justice agenda dominates their lives. The line of division is not between those who work and those who do not work. It is between those who employ social justice strategies and those who do works of faith for the faithful to build up the faith. Some call us the perfectible. But what is important to note is that the more one rejects social justice, the more embedded in communities of faith we become. Building up faith is always a local process done with local people at the grassroots level. Nothing is formed or sold without faith. We must trust one another to work together. This happens at the local level. But social justice is based on the idea that other people represent risk. The purpose of government is to mitigate the risk we pose to each other by means of a social justice agenda. It is to further their social justice agenda that the state becomes an enemy to the local community. The key sector in a strike would seem to be transportation. When nothing can move, production shuts down. This hurts globalists more than the local community if it has been created to promote sustainability and resilience. But a general strike generally means everything stops. The general strike can be a very blunt instrument when something more tactical is needed. Locavores are not looking for a shift in the social justice agenda, we want it out of our communities. Locavores need to pick the target more carefully than what is achieved by a shutdown of transportation. The main objective of a tactical strike is to disrupt the workings of the government, not the church. A tactical general strike, TGS, is a strike that targets the social justice function of the state. A general strike is generally organized by the unions and consists of a day when the unions require their members to walk off the job. But unions are beneficiaries of social justice and are not always behind movements that target the social justice function of the state. If a strike is to be successful, it has to be grounded in truth and justice. The strike must be able to demonstrate the cause is just. It is not enough to have a grievance, the grievance must pertain to an infringement of rights. It is easier to complain the sharing is not fair than it is to prove the sharing itself is demonic. Social justice is the idea that there is an end state we all ought to aspire to, as a race. Sometimes this condition is referred to as equality, and other times equity is used. Regardless, social justice looks to an end that is common to all. This is where the concept of globalism comes in. Risk threatens the mission objective. Social justice seeks to mitigate risk by reducing disparities between various social groups. Equality is the preferred state of social justice warriors and a right of all persons. The assumption social justice warriors make is that all humans are born equal, and we ought to die the same way. There does appear to be good reasons for adopting this view, until we realize equality is a subjective condition. If Peter and Paul are to be equal, what do the social justice warriors do if Peter works 60 hours at a job he trained for in his spare time while working at a minimum wage job, while Paul dropped out of school and only does minimum pay jobs off and on in between alcoholic binges? How do we make them equal? If social justice tells us that Peter and Paul have equal rights and these rights include an equal right to food, shelter, and housing, where do the resources come from to provide these things? In this case, Peter is obliged to top up what Paul lacks with what social justice warriors think is Peter's surplus product. If the proportion of the people working at making real things declines, whilst the proportion working at public service jobs and other tax-funded services increases, the cost of goods and services will increase for all. But the people who produce these real goods and services may have the most difficulty buying them. Whereas those in office jobs producing nothing but statistics live quite well on their much higher pay. But even were everyone making the same pay, working in concrete is a much different proposition than doing a data entry job whilst sitting at a keyboard. The participation of the unions in a general strike cannot be relied on because they are part of the social justice group. In any case, unions have restricted strike action to labor issues, staying clear of political conflicts. They make it clear their concern is the financial well-being of their members, not social justice. The concern with social justice brings home another issue we need to deal with. To succeed with a general strike, tactical thinkers must move beyond this idea that humanity is of one mind or substance. This is not a biblical position. There are two groups of persons. Social justice warriors will never support Christians or those on the right, not ever. Social justice warriors are the enemy of the local. Any hope that any protest or action that attempts to devolve power down to the lower levels will be supported by those on the left is grounded in liberal thinking. As mentioned above, never assume the police or law enforcement bodies are the friends of the working class. Never believe liberals will support anything that promises to change the social dynamic in favor of the local. The elites and the warrior class have always cooperated to hold down the worker. This naturally tends to make liberals globalists. It is the way things are. Worker power is local power. But even here we have to clarify, because the line of division is not between worker and elite or liberal and conservative, though these serve as a handy way to illustrate the division. The division between men has more to do with morality than politics. We know that by their fruits they are known. Good men do not produce bad fruits, but bad persons will not produce good fruits. Judge people based on their works, not on their words. To judge requires a foundation on which to judge. That is, judging it not to be done on the assumption we are all supposed to end up the same. This kind of judgment is called social justice, and it looks at other contestants for the social pie as a source of risk. Social justice is all about mitigating the risk represented by other persons through law and a redistribution of wealth to ensure the pie is shred the right way. Good persons do not use social justice, whereas evil persons do. People are not just divided by good and evil, they are divided by how they adjudicate issues of good and evil. Evil people always represent risk and a threat of loss. Evil persons impose costs onto society and future generations. Evil cannot sustain itself. Evil groups are not sustainable by their own means. What is evil is what must be subsidized by the good. The purpose of a tactical general strike is to eliminate the costs of social justice. No one has a right to claim what someone else produced, regardless of the justification. There are no sufficient mitigating factors that justify unilateral expropriation of resources. The principle of subsidiarity keeps things local. Locavores organize using cells. The cell is a small group of no more than 15 who are, by definition, a local community. Every cell selects a chairperson. The chairpersons of the local cells form a council of no more than 15 persons to create a higher administrative level. There are 12 political levels. Each level is administrated by councils of chairpersons. The chairs of the lower levels serve as the council of the upper level. By working through these councils, tactical decisions can be easily made. Tactics are decided locally according to the principle of subsidiarity, at the level best suited to dealing with the issue in question. Each level is composed of councils, composed of the chairs of the lower level. Political divisions. 1. Coterie/small group. 2. Village/neighborhood/block. 3. Town/township. 4. City/borough. 5. District/parish. 6. Municipality/section. 7. County. 8. Province/state. 9. Region/sector. 10. Nation. 11. Continent/center. 12. World.